The summer sun was beginning to dip behind the low buildings of a small Texas town when the sound of motorcycle engines filled the air outside a dusty roadside gas station. A group of bikers had stopped to rest, their large bikes lined up neatly, chrome shining under the orange sky. They laughed loudly, teasing one another, enjoying a rare quiet evening on the open road. To most people passing by, they looked intimidating: leather jackets, tattoos, heavy boots, but to them, it was just another moment of freedom. Suddenly, a small figure ran toward them from across the road. She couldn't have been more than 7 years old. Her hair was messy, her dress dusty, and her bare feet slapped against the hot pavement. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she ran as fast as her little legs could carry her. The bikers noticed her at the same time, their laughter fading as confusion replaced it. The girl stopped in front of them, gasping for breath. With a shaking voice, she cried, "Please, they're beating my mama." The air seemed to freeze. One of the bikers, a tall man with a gray beard and tired eyes, stepped forward. His name was Jack, and he had ridden thousands of miles in his life, seen storms, danger, and loss, but nothing hit him harder than the fear in that child's eyes. He knelt down so he would be at her level and spoke gently, his rough voice suddenly calm. "Easy, sweetheart," he said. "What's your name?" "Lily," she sobbed. "They're hurting her. She told me to run. I didn't know who else to ask." Jack felt a tight knot form in his chest. Behind him, the other bikers had gone completely silent. Helmets were set aside, phones slipped into hands. Every man there understood something important. This wasn't a story or a rumor. This was real, and it was happening right now. "Where's your mom, Lily?" Jack asked quietly. She pointed toward a cluster of old trailers behind the gas station, near a dry field surrounded by broken fencing. "There," she said. "Please hurry." Jack stood up and turned to the others. No words were needed. One biker immediately dialed 911, calmly reporting a domestic emergency and giving the location. Another grabbed a water bottle and handed it to Lily. Someone draped a leather jacket around her shaking shoulders. Jack knelt again. "You did the right thing," he told her firmly. "You were very brave." Lily sniffed, gripping the jacket tightly. "Is my mama gonna be okay?" Jack met her eyes and nodded. "We're going to make sure she is." As the police were dispatched, the bikers mounted their bikes, forming a protective line. With Lily leading the way, they headed toward the trailers, no longer a group of riders passing through town, but something far more important. Behind the rumble of engines was a single shared purpose: make sure no one else got hurt tonight. The motorcycles rolled slowly behind Lily as she led them toward the old trailers. The evening air felt heavier with every step, the fading sunlight casting long shadows across the cracked ground. From one of the trailers ahead, angry voices could already be heard. Lily trembled and stopped walking. Jack gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "You stay right here with us," he said softly. "You're safe." Two bikers positioned themselves beside Lily, blocking her view, while Jack and the others moved closer to the trailer. The shouting stopped abruptly when the men inside noticed the group outside. The door was yanked open, and a tense silence filled the air. Jack stood calmly at the front, his posture firm but controlled. "Police are on the way," he said evenly. "This ends now." The two men froze, clearly shaken. They hadn't expected anyone, especially not a line of bikers, to show up. One tried to argue, his voice shaky and defensive, but no one responded. The presence of the bikers was enough. No threats, no shouting, just a clear signal that what was happening wouldn't be ignored. From behind the door, a woman slowly stepped into view. Her face was pale, her hands trembling. Seeing Lily safe across the yard, wrapped in a jacket and surrounded by strangers who clearly cared, she broke down in tears. She lowered herself onto the steps, covering her face, overwhelmed. Lily broke free from the bikers beside her and ran to her mother. Jack watched carefully, ready to step in if needed, but the danger had passed. The men backed away just as police sirens echoed in the distance. Within minutes, officers arrived and took control of the situation, separating everyone and ensuring the woman and child were protected. As statements were given, one biker quietly stayed with Lily's mom, offering water and simple words of reassurance. Another sat on the ground with Lily, letting her color on a notepad pulled from a saddlebag. The sound of sirens faded, replaced by calm voices and steady breathing. After everything was handled, Lily's mother approached Jack. Her eyes were red, but her voice was steady. "I don't know how to thank you," she said. "You didn't have to help us." Jack shook his head gently. "Yes, we did." Before leaving, Jack knelt again in front of Lily. He took off the small metal badge from his jacket, just a symbol from one of his cross-country rides, and placed it in her hand. "For bravery," he said. "You saved your mom tonight." Lily smiled for the first time, holding it tightly. As the bikers rode out of town, engines humming into the distance, the gas station lights flickered on behind them. The town would remember that night. Not for fear or violence, but for a simple truth learned again. Sometimes the people who look the toughest are the ones with the biggest hearts. The next morning, sunlight filled the small trailer in a way it hadn't in a long time. Lily sat at the tiny kitchen table, swinging her feet as her mother, Emma, slowly stirred a pot of oatmeal. There were faint marks of a hard night on her face, but her eyes carried something new, relief. For the first time in months, the trailer felt quiet, truly quiet. A social worker had visited early that morning, kind and patient, explaining the next steps and making sure Emma and Lily would be safe. The police had been clear. What happened would not be ignored. Emma listened carefully, nodding, holding Lily's hand the entire time. When the door finally closed behind them, Emma exhaled deeply, as if releasing a weight she had carried for years. "You were very brave last night," she said softly to Lily. Lily looked down at the small metal badge Jack had given her. "They were brave too," she replied. "They didn't even know us." Across town, the bikers were already back on the road, engines cutting through the cool morning air. But none of them could stop thinking about the little girl and her mother. At a diner just outside the city limits, Jack pulled his bike over and led the group inside. Over coffee, one of the bikers spoke up. "We can't just ride off like that," he said. "We should check on them. Make sure they're okay." Jack nodded. "I already called a local volunteer group last night. They help families get back on their feet. I gave them the address." By the afternoon, help began to arrive at the trailer. A woman from a local shelter brought groceries. Another volunteer offered temporary repairs to the old door. Emma stood in the doorway, stunned by the kindness of strangers. She felt something she hadn't felt in a long time, hope. Days passed, and life slowly began to change. Lily returned to school, proud to tell her teacher that she had been very brave. Emma found support, guidance, and a chance to start over. It wasn't easy, but she wasn't alone anymore. A week later, a familiar sound echoed through the street, the low rumble of motorcycles. Lily's eyes widened as the bikers rode up, parking carefully beside the road. Jack stepped off his bike, holding a small paper bag. "We were passing through," he said with a smile. "Thought we'd check in." Emma's eyes filled with tears, not of fear this time, but gratitude. Lily ran forward and hugged Jack around the waist. He laughed softly, awkward but touched. The bikers didn't stay long. They never did. But before leaving, Jack looked at Emma and said something she would never forget. "Strong families aren't built in one day," he said. "But brave moments can change everything." As the bikes disappeared down the road, Lily waved until they were gone. She pressed the metal badge to her chest, smiling. In that small town, a story quietly spread, not about fear, but about courage, kindness, and how even in the darkest moments, help can come from the most unexpected places.